If you are trying to pull your kids away from screens without triggering a full-blown household uprising, I have something that actually works in my house. My son and I are obsessed with the games from Taco Cat Games. We especially love their very popular Taco Cat Goat Cheese Pizza. I am not kidding when I say every family we've given it to comes back saying the same thing. This game is chaos in the best possible way. It's ridiculously easy to learn, the rounds are super fast, and within about 10 minutes, your living room turns into a laugh until you cannot breathe, slap the table competition. And for ADHD brains, it's perfect. Quick feedback, constant engagement, lots of movement, all the things that keep kids actually interested, which is exactly why I love it for our Screens campaign. Games like this create those tiny moments of connection that reset everyone's brain after a long day of school, homework, and way too much dang screen time. So if you're looking for a 10-minute family reset that actually works, check them out at tacocatgames.com or check them out in the show notes, because sometimes the best way to compete with screens is with doing something even more fun. If you're parenting a kiddo with ADHD, you already know the phrase, just take a deep breath, usually lands about as well as the Lego to the heel. That's why I've been loving Moonbird and their kid-friendly version Moon Buddy. Instead of telling our kids to calm down while they're emotionally feral and breathing like tiny caffeinated raccoons, this handheld breathing coach actually guides them through it. It gently expands and contracts in their hands, helping them slow their breathing without staring at another screen. And for ADHD families, that kind of feels revolutionary. And honestly, it's not just for kids, because ADHD parents deserve regulated nervous systems too. Whether you're dealing with stress, anxiety, sleep struggles, or a brain that refuses to turn off, Moonbird can help you slow down and reset. It's screen-free, simple, and surprisingly soothing. Visit moonbird.life and use the code ChaosandCaffeine10 to save 10% on your order. Alright y'all, welcome back to Chaos and Caffeine. Today's episode is one every parent needs to hear, yes, even our neurotypical friends, because whether we like it or not, we're raising children in a digital world that is moving much faster than most of us can keep up with. And honestly, for neurodivergent families, the conversation around screens gets complicated fast. Because screens aren't always just entertainment for our kids. Sometimes they're regulation, sometimes they're connection, sometimes they're socialization, creativity, learning, escape, dopamine, or the one thing getting us through a hard day without somebody launching a chicken nugget across the kitchen. But at the same time, we also know the internet can be overwhelming, manipulative, addictive, and genuinely dangerous. Especially for children who struggle with impulsivity, emotional regulation, social vulnerability, executive functioning, or reading social cues, which is exactly why I wanted today's guest on the podcast. Today, Chris McKenna is helping me close out our Screens campaign. He is the founder of Protect Young Eyes, one of the leading organizations helping families navigate digital safety in a way that is practical, informed, and rooted in real life, not fear-mongering. His work has helped parents understand everything from social media risk and online exploitation to gaming, algorithms, pornography exposure, smartphones, AI, and how to create safer digital environments for kids without completely losing our minds in the process. And what I really appreciate about Chris is that he understands this isn't just about taking the phone away. This is about preparing our kids for the world they will actually live in. It's about helping parents move from panic to proactive. And it's about figuring out how to raise digitally capable children while still protecting their mental health, safety, confidence, and childhood. So today, we're diving deep into kids and dopamine-driven technology, online vulnerability, digital independence, gaming culture, executive functioning, internet safety, and how ADHD kiddos experience the online world differently. This conversation is powerful, it's practical, and honestly, it's one I think every exhausted parent scrolling at midnight, wondering, am I screwing this all up, needs to hear. So grab your emotional support coffee, hide in the pantry if you must, and let's welcome Chris to the mic. Welcome to Chaos and Caffeine, the ADHD parenting podcast where you do not need a degree to understand your kid. I'm Danielle, mom in the trenches who spent years obsessing over how to do this better, so you don't have to learn everything the hard way like I did. Each week, I bring on experts who actually make sense. And then if you want the real story, come hang out with me on Patreon where I break down how it all played out in my house. What worked, what flopped, and what I'm still side-eyeing. Thanks for being here. Chris, welcome to Chaos and Caffeine.
Thank you, Danielle. I love that title. That fits my family really, really well. So
When I named the show, I thought my son was the chaos and I needed the caffeine, but I'm learning more and more I'm contributing to the chaos. So
there you go. That's right. Well, I'm sure that makes you a more amazing parent, and I'm contributing to both. I don't drink any coffee. I don't know if that disqualifies me from being a guest, but I make it every morning for my wife. So I hope that counts. So
we'll let you in as an honorary member.
thank you. Thank you.
So this episode is wrapping up our screens campaign, and I think you are the perfect guest for that. But before I pick your brain, I would love for you to tell our listeners a little bit about you and your journey.
Yeah, absolutely. So Chris McKenna, married to Andrea, 26 years in. We have 4 children who are teenagers and young adults. Our only daughter is 21, and then we have 3 teen boys who are ages 14, 16, and 16. So a set of twins in there. One has Down syndrome, the other one doesn't. So navigating a really unique set of twins, especially when it comes to screens and attention and all the things I know that we'll talk about.
Mm.
I never expected to be quote an IT guy running Protect Young Eyes. I'm an accountant who worked in risk management for over a decade with large companies all over the world. Love that. I was then felt called into local church. So I then worked with a large junior high ministry for about 7 years after a business career. The mix of those two things, Danielle, of understanding risk and doing things to mitigate business risk, but then watching us drop ridiculous amounts of digital risk into the pockets of kids during the time that I was in ministry from 2009 to 2016, which is really when we decided that it was a good idea to put smartphones into kids' pockets. That was a problem to me. That was unsettling. And so I just really started doing research for families at my church, launched a website. I just wanted to fill that gap between amazing parents, like many of you listening to this, and technology that literally does not care about the thriving of our children. They care about our kids. They are a valuable and vulnerable audience, but they do not care about the thriving of our children. And so I aim to stand in that gap, and Protect Young Eyes wants to equip and empower and just do whatever we can. We say step by step, chat by chat, to help families create safer digital spaces. So here we are today, coming out of COVID. Families were more connected than ever, and then that gave rise to the need for Protect Young Eyes to be more. In fact, just yesterday, I know time doesn't mean a whole lot in a podcast because you may listen to this, a month from now, but according to, this conversation yesterday, I just met with my team. There's now 8 of us that do presentations and speak around the country and do curriculum, and it's just wild to me that this is where we are. So never expected it, and yet feel as if, for me as a man of faith, that I've been prepared for this path with that business lens, with that risk lens, with that love of families, watching what technology has done, being a consultant who likes to fix problems. And this is a problem that needed a solution. So that's why I'm here.
Did I hear that right? That Protect Young Eyes came out of like a church newsletter and just kept growing?
It came out, it did. So I tell this story. So my book launches in 2 weeks from today on June 16th, 2026. And in the introduction of the book, I write the origin story of me, raising my hand in a staff meeting at church where there was an open Wednesday night. Adults usually had teaching on Wednesday nights of some kind, and I took care of students during that time. And there was an open night, and I raised my hand. I said, "Hey, I want to talk to parents about porn." They're like, "What?" Like, "Yeah, I want to talk to parents about online pornography." It was a massive deal that parents, especially in churches, just weren't talking about in 2014. That really is what started it, Danielle. I started a like a small Facebook group after that, just to educate parents. I started putting app reviews in there. Parents didn't know what Snapchat was. They didn't know that Instagram was more than just pictures. They're like, oh, it's just a camera app. Oh, have you scrolled through Instagram? Because if you think Instagram is bad and toxic in 2026, you should have seen it in 2014. It was the Wild West, full on streaming pornography in the middle of Instagram, like everywhere.
Really?
Ridiculous. None of the filters and controls that they have today. So I just wanted to educate. And there's other kind of, I won't go into it, but I mean, it started by me kind of raising my hand and saying, I want to talk about porn. And, that's not usually how you start a business, but that's really how it began. And my own story is woven into that. I was exposed to explicit content as a child that led to compulsive use as an adult that was really destructive to me relationally, even in our marriage. And we came through all of that. And then I watched us put that in kids' pockets, right? So combine all of that kind of lived experience, professional experience, just a love of families and childhood. And here we are.
Thank you for sharing that. I've told it probably 12 times already on this podcast, but my biggest argument right now, I have an 11-year-old son, only one child, and he is begging for Snapchat as a way to communicate with his peers. And I keep trying to explain to him that app was designed to disappear. So whatever your friends send you, you read it and it goes away, and mom would never know what they sent. And heck no, buddy. It's not, it's not happening.
I agree, 11. And if there's an app that I would love to just get out of all the teenage years altogether, it's not TikTok, it's not Instagram, it's Snapchat. Like,
Mm,
there's no app that does more instantaneous, irreversible harm. So, parents ask me all the time, what's the worst or which one should I give? And that's a really subjective question because kids are all very unique and these apps have different attributes. If self-esteem and just sort of comparison is a bit of an issue, then Instagram's probably not great for your kid. If they have really difficulty with stopping and just that sort of self-control, well, TikTok's not going to go well. But for Snapchat, it's just predatory to teenage and adolescent vulnerabilities because you're compelled to respond instantly. There's almost this social contract you sign into with Snapchat that you commit to responding as fast as possible. So it's a distraction and you just are taking pictures of the ceiling to respond back to stuff because that's the exchange of I've done my part. Snapchat requires me to do my part. It doesn't matter if it's a quality photo or if I'm improving the quality of a relationship. It's this transaction
mm,
instead of anything of quality. And I can't stand that. I mean, not to mention the how many deaths that have occurred because of that sort of instantaneous connection through snap maps, through kids who got connected with somebody selling fentanyl laced Adderall or something through Snap Map, and then they died instantly of an overdose or what we call poisoning because it wasn't their fault, right? These sorts of instantaneous, irreversible events that have happened through that app. So if I could snap and get rid of an app, it would be Snapchat, just because it preys on all the things, Danielle, that I love about these 11, 12, 13, 17-year-old years. I love that kids are impulsive and curious and adventurous and take risks. Childhood is meant to take some mistakes or make some mistakes and take risks so you can figure out how to be a more responsible adult. And when those choices are weaponized or irreversible because of the digital world, that's really hard on childhood. So I
mm.
didn't mean to go on a bit of a Snapchat bender there, but your
Please.
no, your no is well founded neurologically, scientifically, relationally, spiritually. It is well founded. And my none of my children had Snapchat in their teenage years. So my oldest, who's 21, never had it in high school, has it now, but keeps it off during the day because it's so destructive to her attention in class. She has it blocked during the day, which I love that she self-manages. But my 16-year-old who has an iPhone does not have any social media and doesn't have Snapchat. But I think it brings up a really important point around What part of that do we need to own as parents when our kids are coming to us and saying that this is the way that my friends communicate? That's probably true, but are we doing our part as parents to reach out to the parents of the friends of our kids to try to encourage other forms of communication, right? I think we need to own some of that and do the awkward, hard work of some of those conversations to create some of those other communication channels, come to some collective action agreements on that stuff, because it's not your son's fault that he wants Snapchat.
Mm.
He just
Yeah.
wants to be where his friends are. You would have too. I would have too. You just wanted to be where your friends are. I
Yeah.
get it.
Hmm. Luckily now he's kind of found a workaround to communicate with all of his best friends in different modalities. But
I
that
love
is
it.
still one of our biggest struggles, I will say.
Yeah.
I kind of like that you went off on a tangent there. Do you mind telling me the pitfalls of the other social media platforms before we get more focused in?
Yeah. And I think without going into a ton of detail on individual apps, what I find parents value is one level up from that. When you understand some basic neurology, some basic teenage developmental needs,
Hmm.
then you can look at all the apps and understand why some might be better or worse for kids. Because there are features, but those features don't mean as much as they should unless you understand how intentionally designed
Hmm.
those features are to interact with certain developmental stages of kids. Like there's no accident, and it's not just a random feature that Snapchat has the snap streak. Let me go back to Snapchat for a minute, my favorite enemy. The snap streak is this feature that if I send you a snap, Danielle, and you send me one back, that constitutes a 1 day streak. Now, I'm a teenager, let's assume for a minute. And so me having a streak with you has significance. To us as adults, it's just some dumb number 1 day, 2 day, 5 days, whatever. But when you understand adolescent development, you understand that connection is as strong a feeling as hunger. I've been told this by child psychologists and therapists with decades of experience, a man that I was with over at the World Economic Forum, who this is his life. He said, Chris, connection is as strong a feeling as hunger to the adolescent brain. This is from Dr. Jim Winston. He runs a lab down at UNC Chapel Hill. Now, if you understand the brain, you understand that hunger is a sensation that lives down in the deep survival part of our brain, sometimes referred to as the lizard brain or reptilian part of the brain. Things like regulatory thirst, hunger, these are things that like keep us alive at a base level. Think about that. What Dr. Jim is saying is the need to connect to my friends feels like survival if I'm a teenager. Now, pair that up with an app that has said the quality of your friendship depends on how long your streak lasts. To me, if I'm a teenager who wants to connect and be seen as connecting to my friends, rupturing the snap streak feels like a break in survival level instinct, as if I'm rupturing this important part of my life. It's not just a streak like it seems like to us. Oh, silly, who cares? Just break it. No, to them, it has currency and value and significance because it signifies how good of a friend I am.
Hmm.
That is no accident. Snapchat understands childhood development. Snapchat knows that if a teen who has a snap streak of any significance is at risk of breaking that streak because their phone has been taken away, they know that that teen brain is going to release a stress hormone called cortisol, which I'm sure you've had discussions about and understand. It's in all of us, this fight or flight. It releases, and we have to then figure out in the amygdala what to do. Do I freak out and run, or do I process this? If I'm a teen brain with a brain full of cortisol,
Hmm.
brains don't like to live in that lack of like regulation, that dysregulated state. They want to find a state of balance again. And if I'm a teen who's stressed out about my snap streak, the safest place for me is back in Snapchat, where I keep the streak going. That's how I get rid of my cortisol. there's no accident, right, to any of this. You can see how when you understand the neurology, you understand your amazing teenager, you can look at those apps and go, I see what you're doing. I know what you got going on there. And I think as parents, it gives us even a little more confidence and firm footing to stand on our no with a little more confidence. It's not because I feel mean. It's hard saying no to my kid, but I know that there are engineers, PhDs, and scientists over in Snapchat in California who have studied brains like my son's, and they're designing features that manipulate my son's brain. No, heck no. Then instead of just no, I think we feel more okay saying heck no. Am I going to allow that scientist to have that kind of control over my boy or over my daughter or whatever? So I think when you understand them, right? How they are, whether you believe we evolved or created, whatever, when you understand them and you understand the apps, you can see like the harms more clearly. And I think it gives us a little more ammunition as parents to feel confident in the no, no way, bud. Like, I'm sorry, just stop asking. You're 11. The answer is no for a while. And it's not because I don't love you. It's because there are engineers over there, thousands of miles away, that see you as a commodity, that see you as a part of their salary. And I'm not going to give them access to you. I just think it helps us parent a little more confidently in the digital age when we have that kind of understanding of things. I totally did not answer your question. But before
You
I
did.
answer this thing about Instagram or this thing about TikTok, because they're all the same, every single one of them is built on the same exact business model of attention extraction, not thriving, not pro-social, not pro-childhood, not any of that. And when you understand how their brain is, you can look at them and go, yep, I see what you're doing, TikTok, with that addictive algorithm. You are trying to suck as many minutes out of my amazing child's life. No way. Or you know what? I know that my daughter is prone to comparison because she is asking the world, am I okay? Am I beautiful? Do I fit in? And I see that perfect feed of pictures and Instagram. No, I'm not going to put her eyes in front of that. That's not what's best for her heart, right? When you understand their motivations, I think it just helps us go, nope, not my kid, not today.
I think that's really powerful. And sometimes when I'm talking to my kid about social media, when I open my mouth, my dad comes out and I'm like, I would say things, like one of the arguments I had for the longest time was the makers of TikTok and the iPhone don't let their kids have TikTok or the iPhone. And that wasn't a strong enough argument. But throughout this screens campaign, I've kind of learned to reframe that a little bit as they're not just after your attention, they're after my attention too. So let's work on it together. That he seems to accept a little bit better than just, you know, there's tech giants out there trying to get you, but really they are trying to get both of us. It's not a fake argument.
It's not a fake argument, and there's all kinds of truth in what you're saying. You know, you're being a parent, Danielle, who is, instead of listening to the 95%, 98% of culture that has said yes, we instead as parents need to be listening to the 2% who have said no. And those that belong to the group of 2% who have said no are Steve Jobs, are Bill Gates, are the inventors. It's the cartel leaders who don't give their drugs to their family. When you think about it sort of in a real world sort of context,
Yeah.
there's truth to that too. That's well documented. I sometimes joke, why don't we parent more like celebrities? Which is a really funny thing to say. But when you look at celebrities, Pink and Matthew McConaughey and others that are out there, Jennifer Gardner, when you look at how they parent their kids with technology, they are making these no way decisions because they've been to the grass on the other side of the fence and it's not greener.
Yeah.
They've experienced the millions of haters and the trolls and the comments and the darkness and the mental health strain and the stress that comes with having a large following. They've lived all of that. And they're like, I know the dopamine is telling you that it's good over here. It's not. And so they've decided to parent their kids differently. And I think we as parents can learn a lot from that. And there's power in what you said, which I love that it's working. And that's why habit number one of our 5 habits in a tech-ready home is to model the right behaviors. You, by admitting our own vulnerabilities with technology and dopamine, we're still human, and we need to lead in that way if we're going to require them to delay certain, maybe we need to be a little more mindful with how we use our phones too. So I love that even without you and I comparing notes or even deciding that I was going to write a book that focused on 5 habits, you just said habit number 1 and it's working. And I love that.
Yeah. Can we talk about the quiet gaps screens have created? Our kids can build entire digital worlds, but struggle to read the room in the real one. And no, this isn't about demonizing screens. They're not evil, but they are passive. Social skills, executive functioning, those are not passive. They're built, practiced, strengthened. That's why I love social thinking, because this isn't just be nice advice. It teaches kids how social communication actually works, how to notice what others are thinking, manage impulses, join conversations appropriately, and respond instead of react. And here's the part parents don't always realize. It also builds executive functioning, organization, flexible thinking, time management, problem solving. These are classroom survival skills, friendship skills, life skills. If screens have taken some of those practice reps, we can build them back intentionally. Check out social thinking in the show notes, and let's raise kids who can navigate people and not just platforms. Are you tired of being the screen police? The constant negotiation, nagging, and fights over screen time? Girl, it's so exhausting. 2 frustrated ADHD parents who experience the problem firsthand have created a solution that actually works. Screen Coach is a time management app that rewards good habits. Kids can earn their screen time by doing activities set by you, chores, homework, even brushing their teeth. You can allocate times for kids to access certain apps only or block all apps. Once it's set up, you can relax. There's no sneaky workarounds. Endorsed by psychologists, Screen Coach enforces those routines that help ADHD kids and parents thrive. They offer a free 30-day trial, and because you're part of the Chaos fam, you can even get a 5% discount after the trial. You can head to myscreencoach.com/chaos or click the link in the description and start building healthy habits for life. I am raising a master negotiator. So if I were to say, you can't charge your phone in your bedroom, but I did that, he would automatically be like, hold on, no, hold on just a second, Mom. So yeah, I'm not raising the just go with the flow kid at all.
And you bring up, really great things for us to be mindful of. And there's teaching in that too. We do live in a world that has different rules for minors versus adults. That's a reality. Whether it's certain privileges or military or substances or jobs, there are legal differences in the entire justice system and the business world about what you can and can't do, even if you go to a bank to sign a mortgage, or how old you have to be to rent a car. There's all kinds of you're either too old or not old enough, kind of stuff. In your example with the phone in the bedroom, which is a pretty common one, where we often say to kids, no way. And then what do? We look at the dumb thing and play Candy Crush right before bed, and we set it 12 inches from our head, and we use it as our alarm. We check email first thing in the morning, and we are so hypocritical.
Yeah.
They see that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm also not suggesting, although you could, and I've had plenty do this, that you charge your phone. I just had a mom yesterday talk to me about she puts her phone on airplane mode at night. And they have a phone in their house that rings. They have an old kind of charge phone that rings. And that's if somebody close to them desperately needs something, that's what they'll use. Great. But maybe the middle ground in that. It's like, you know what, son, you're right. I've told you you can't have your phone in your room. And there's a good reason for that because teenagers rely more on good and healthy sleep during this developmental phase. You need that. And you know what? I'm trying to do the same thing. So here's what I'm doing. And this is actually what I do. My phone is in my room, Danielle, but I keep it at least 6 to 10 feet away from me, where I have to go get it if I want to do something. It's not next to me. And I can't tell you the difference that that makes in the quality of my sleep. It also requires you to get up to go turn off the alarm. And so you wake up better
Yeah.
than just hitting the little 9 more minutes, 9 more minutes, 9 more minutes on the iPhone. But I think those are good conversations. Say, you know what, son, I'm in the spirit of the same thing I'm asking you to do. Here's how it plays out for me and why I'm doing it, but why, as a parent who also needs to be in touch in an emergency, I can go get it if I need to, but it's not disrupting my sleep. And that's what I want for you too.
Yes, I love that. Do you want to dive into the other four?
In terms of just kind of walking right through them.
Yeah, if you don't mind, if you want to, if we have
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, no, I would love to. So it starts off with model the right behaviors, the one that we were just talking about. After that, we pursue authentic connection. So showing our kids the power of human to human connection, going after their hearts, valuing the relationship in a very connected yet disconnected relationally world and busyness. I think parents sometimes construe a busy calendar with a full heart
Mm.
in terms of a relationship. So model the right behaviors, pursue authentic connection, encourage work and play. Structure at home and lack of structure outside are critical to thriving. After that, we delay addictive technologies, not all, but right kid, right tech, right time. And then the fifth habit is to diligently prevent harm. And that's where we get into layers of protection and routers and filters and all the practical ways that we wrap our kids in layers of protection. So model the right behaviors, pursue authentic connection, encourage work and play, delay addictive technologies, and diligently prevent harm. That's our 5-part framework, and each of them has a ton of tips and practical things that we want parents to be able to do. Those are the principles, right? And I wrote the book intentionally at that principle level because I don't know what tech is coming out next week. I don't know what new app hasn't been discovered yet, but I can tell you no matter what it is next week, those 5 principles or habits will still apply. So they're intended to be progress proof in terms of the changes since technology is changing so rapidly right now. These principles work for social media, for gaming, pornography, AI companions, and whatever we haven't thought of yet.
So I have ADHD, full disclosure, and I cannot skip over the fact that you are probably 13 out of 13 experts on screens who have came and said that outside play is one of the most important things that we can do for our kids. And I love that. I love that mainly because I can get my kid off of a screen and we can go do it without an argument. But I know there's parents out there who
Yeah.
don't have that luxury.
Yeah, and just the value of physical movement in general. So, one of the books that I referenced and used quite a bit in writing my own is a book called Spark. Spark talks all about the physiological benefits of exercise in terms of our just overall health and well-being. And even some studies that show that leveling up your heart rate certain times during a week has the same impact against certain test groups that either had certain levels of antidepressants that they were taking in terms of how it was helping that human being. Exercise was comparable in some of these in some of these studies that were done. So just we again, there's going to be different worldviews that listen to this. Whether you believe we evolved a certain way or were created a certain way, it all happened in the physical world. We have come to be who we are today as a species in 2026 through the physical world, in tribes, in communities, in groups, in farming and foraging and surviving in the physical world. It is how we make the most and best sense of who we are on this planet. The same is true in learning, where when you compare side to side reading when you're a young child with an adult who cares for you going through a story versus listening versus reading on an iPad, the lowest amount of brain activation is always on an iPad compared to just listening to that physical reading experience with an adult next to you. There's no accident that we thrive when we are active and physical and out in the world and out in nature, and how refreshed you feel after a beautiful walk through a sunny whatever, why I love to hike and to run. And that's why I don't use headphones. I just love to listen and hear and just soak up that experience. I don't want to miss any of it. And it's so refreshing to my soul. It's an antidote to the dopamine drip that waits for us on our screens. So I think that's true whether you're 4, 14, or 40. I think it's what we need.
We have had so many days where we will find ourselves at each other, just nitpicking and we end up at the park or on the trampoline, and we both can look at each other and say, I think we just really needed to go outside, like
Yeah.
look at our day turning around when we're just outside.
I recently listened to a podcast of someone who talked about the idea she was struggling with communicating with her teenage daughter. And she got the idea from somebody, and she was talking about this idea, and she now calls them relationship walks. So she now goes on these kind of right before or after dinner, I can't remember, just walks around the block with her daughter. And the quality of the conversations that she has in one of these walks exceeds what months of how you doing or what's going on at home kind of questions that were always sort of met with, you're the annoying parent sort of response.
Yeah.
It just has transformed their relationship, these little walks. And so she calls them relationship. It has strengthened that bond with her daughter. She said once her legs started moving, her mouth started moving. It was
Yeah.
unreal,
Yeah. I can definitely see that.
Yeah.
So activity is not just, I mean, it's not just a reset for ADHD kiddos, like they actually need that. And I think that leads me to my next question of, and you may not have much insight, but I can't stop thinking about it. These devices and apps, they're out to get everyone's attention, but our kids, our ADHD parents and ADHD kids are especially vulnerable because we're already dopamine deprived, however you want to say that. And our kids have less of that inhibition to say, hey, this might be dangerous. And it kind of freaks me out, Chris. I'm not going to lie. I think about it a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. There's both sides to this. There's causal and correlational that I want to just kind of call out. Do children who already have ADHD tendencies find themselves at a greater vulnerability in the face of technology that is coming after their attention? No question. No question at all. I have a son with Down syndrome, not apples to apples in what you're describing, but that means that my 16-year-old with 16-year-old curiosities has the stopping cues of a 7-year-old. Therefore, we have to be abundantly careful with how easily his curiosity and inability to stop what he loves can be weaponized and harm him. Technology hasn't been constructed in a way to do grant no harm. Wouldn't it be great if every single thing connected to the internet just assumed that a child with vulnerability similar to my son might pick it up at some point in time, and there were some stopping cues or boundaries or something in place that would even prevent him from accidentally stumbling into a place that I don't know. There's got to be a way. Technology can solve anything. Why they haven't solved things like this is, again, because of the business model. They
Yeah.
can tell me how many times I rolled over on my watch, yet you can't create a safer digital space for my son. That's just a business decision. But on the other side of this, and I posted about this earlier this winter, that there was a December 2025 study published by the American Academy of Pediatrics, which examined just over 8,300 children, checking in with them annually for 4 years and gathering data from parents. And on average, those kids who they studied, they were looking at what they did, and they watched TV, played video games, and used social media. On average, when you combine those things, for over 4 hours a day. And those who use social media the most in this 8,300 children study, based on their own self-assessment of where they were, had the highest association with increase in inattention symptoms over time, which is really the first study I've seen that points toward maybe there's a causal impact, that when you're constantly exposed to something that requires quick reaction, that you're always looking for quick affirmation, and am I getting enough likes, or am I responding fast enough, that when you then transition out of that into the real world, that you have a brain that might be tuned to look for that kind of quickness everywhere else.
Yeah.
That's more or less what I read out of that. And I know there's one other I found since then from some work done down actually at Dr. Winston's lab, based on just even measuring the brain, actual differences in the part of the brain that is responsible for hypersensitivity when it comes to social cues changes when you're a high user of social media and on your phone over 8 hours a day. So, Danielle, do we need to wait for enough science for us to take protective measures with our kids when it comes to technology? And, people would automatically say, well, no. And then what are we waiting for? We don't treat our children in the physical world the same way we do in technology anywhere else. Imagine if there was a drug that maybe could help kids with their flu symptoms, but there were a couple of kids that it caused them to consider suicide instead. Just a couple. In the real world, we would automatically pull that from every shelf. You think about just one tainted thing of lettuce is on a shelf and we pull the whole thing around the country, or one hamburger at McDonald's has E. coli. This actually happened. McDonald's quit selling hamburgers everywhere. Anytime there's indication of harm, we typically respond quickly because there's liability and things. We don't do that in the digital world. We treat kids like experimental subjects. Mm. And so I just feel like we've got it backwards. Instead of waiting for evidence that it's the best thing for them before we make a change, we're waiting for evidence that it's the worst thing for them before we take it away. And to me, that's all backwards. I don't know why. So, and I'm not trying to be judgmental or make people feel guilty about their decisions. I want us to sometimes step back and just see it more objectively for how differently we treat technology compared to almost everything else when it comes to children and safety, where we go out of our way with multiple layers of protection, like locks on car doors and latches and seatbelts and airbags. We have redundancy after redundancy in the physical world to protect kids from harm. Why don't we do that in the digital world?
I just had an expert on the other day who compared it to, we've done so much work to keep our kids away from, predators outside and drugs and all of that. And then we hand them a phone, and he was like, basically all of the predators you're trying to keep them away from outside is now in their pocket. And I had never thought about it like that, but it's 100% true.
It is 100% true. Yeah.
100% true. So before I let you tell us about your book, I would be remiss if I did not ask, how do you feel about the tech, I believe it's Meta right now, lawsuits that are happening, and what do you think is going to come of that?
Yeah, so 2 significant lawsuits. One where Meta was found guilty in New Mexico of a faulty product. So it wasn't that the content was bad, or it was that the product under consumer protection law was faulty, and that's what the Attorney General Torres, that was a suit, and they won. It was like $375 million. It was huge. That was brought by the state, and Then in LA, the one that a lot of people were paying attention to was the lawsuit brought by an individual. Kaylee was her name. She's now a young adult, but she claimed that the apps caused certain harms, addictive and other just mental health harms when she was a minor. And she ended up also being successful, which is a really big deal. And that was just a $6 million settlement, but both of them created a way for other suits to follow. That's what's really significant, that for the first time, especially out in LA, there was a jury like that in both of them, that there was a jury that heard testimony. Like Mark Zuckerberg was on the stand, Adam Mosseri was on the stand. We have all kinds of evidence that was then put into, as a part of the discovery process, but then put forth that now is in the public record that we can see. And this is sort of how it all starts to unravel. It's what happened with big tobacco. It's just this little more and more, a little more behind the curtain. And there are hundreds, if not thousands, of lawsuits now that are just sort of drooling at the opportunity to follow a similar path around product liability. Because Danielle, that's really what we need to create a liability structure that makes it painful to be bad to kids. That's what it is. The only thing that ever changes capitalism is liability. That's the only thing that works. And so far, these places have been able to act without any penalty for making mistakes with kids. And that's got to change. And so it's just two cases. And in one, just $6 million, but it wasn't about the money. It was about the legal doors that were opened, because as soon as you break open the courtroom doors, now you get shareholders and boards involved, and others start to get interested in making it safer to avoid that liability. So it's a big deal. I think we need to be happy that those, depending on what side, not everybody, gets into this side of things, or not everybody even agrees that the government, quote, the government with laws should be even telling me how to parent my kids online. I have a whole opinion and thought, about that. This isn't about the government telling me how to parent my kids. This is about the government punishing companies that hurt children with impunity. Like, that needs to hurt if you're a company. You should not have that ability. If not just for my kids, for others who don't have parents who care. Like, that's not right. So I'm glad that we're making some progress.
Me too. And I think that even though it is just a couple of lawsuits right now, I I'm not sure how helpful it will be, but I know in the last year or so, I have seen a flood of ads telling me how safe TikTok is or how safe Instagram
That's
is.
right.
Not that I believe them, but I'm seeing them more. I hope that they are implementing more safety measures and not just the fluff pieces for TV ads, but hopefully good things will come.
Well, you're bringing up a really important tactic of the enemy here.
Mhm.
And that is, and this is why, even you will see articles from Meta posted, say, at Sesame Street, at Girl Scouts, at other, it's called internet safety whitewashing, is what they're doing. They're trying to leverage trustworthy brands to make it look as though their apps are safe.
Mm.
This is exactly what they do. So all kinds of ads. I see them walking through the airport about all that TikTok is doing and all that. Listen, if you're needing to tell me in 2026 that you now care about teens and you've been around for 8 years, that just tells me this is a PR stunt. Like, you shouldn't have to advertise that an app that millions of teens are using is finally safe for teens. That's PR. That's not designed or inherently safe for kids. So
Yeah.
anything that big tech tells us, I want everyone listening to this to be skeptical every single time. They cannot be trusted.
One very last tidbit there. I had on Dr. Shawcroft, who actually is a media researcher at Ohio State, and she said that the thing that she's getting from that kind of advertisement is they're saying, we've given you the technology and the means to correct it. Now it's on the parent. She had a very strong opinion about that, about how it should not be our job, and how even saying that could make us feel guilty because they say it's easy to go in and set these parental controls, but it's really not that simple to go in and set parental controls.
She's exactly right. That's always been their MO. Imagine if we applied that thinking to a new automobile. Okay, so you go to a dealership and you buy a car, and you read on the sticker that there's um, a car seat and there's a way to keep your or there's seat belts, and this is how you keep your child safe. But it's your job to figure that out. And you're like, okay. And so you buy the car and you open up the instruction manual and they're like, well, go get the box out of the trunk. That's where the seatbelts are. Okay, so you open up the trunk and you look for the box, you pull it out, and there are more instructions then as to how you're supposed to install these seatbelts and to get it just right. And wait, you're missing one of the nuts. Wait a minute, but this seatbelt doesn't quite fit my kid who's different sized. And oh, they didn't accommodate for that. Again, we don't treat protecting children in the digital world the same way we would in the analog physical world. That's exactly what these companies are saying with that sort of message. Is it's the same as going to a dealership and buying a car with seatbelts in a box in the trunk and saying, hey, you want to keep your kid safe while driving 75 miles an hour down the road? There's a box in the trunk. Good luck. Like, that's sort of what they're saying.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree with her more.
Yeah. I needed this. I will no lie, Chris, talk your head off all day. I have ADHD, so an ADHD podcast is right up my alley. But I know you have much more important things to do. Do you want to tell people first about the website and then about the book?
Absolutely. For any questions about how to set anything up, your smart TV, your iPhone, your Chromebook, understanding the apps, the AI apps, ChatGPT, any of them, just come to protectyoungeyes.com. Start there. Across the top, you'll see different services that we offer. We have a coaching community called The Table if you need one-on-one assistance. We have speaking, a team that travels the country to come to schools and churches, private and public. But I am releasing a book called 5 Habits of the Tech Ready Family, where you can find anywhere that you buy books. I also recorded the audiobook. Mine is the voice that did that, which was a grueling and amazing process, locked in a box for 2 days, reading my book, to yourself. It was a weird experience. So I would be honored if you would buy that and then maybe buy one for your parents. I want grandparents to understand their home is actually a bit of a soft spot when it comes to digital safety. So maybe that's the gift that you give them, but I'd be honored to have you go and find that 5 Habits of the Tech Ready Family. You can order it whenever you listen to this. You'll be able to order it. It officially publishes on June 16th, 2026, but you can order it now anytime.
Very nice. And of course, I will link all of that in the show notes.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Chris, this has been amazing. I seriously know I would talk to you all day, but again, I'm sure you have more important things to do. I think my final question is, maybe what are we getting right about tech in 2026, or any parting advice that we really needed to hear?
Well, I believe that every parent listening to this, Danielle, is the exact person who is most capable of protecting your kids online. You can do this. Find the voices that make sense to you, that you trust, listen, learn, soak up. We do have to do a bit of our part. We can't just delegate or hope and pray that they don't run into problems, but do your part. Find trusted voices. I hope that can be us. There are others out there, but you can do this with the right amount of intentionality and just dripping in little conversations. It's not all about the tech. Chase after their heart relationally, and I think some of the other tech rules and disagreements will just fall away or fall into place. That's been my experience. So lead with relationship, and that often goes a lot better than getting stressed out by what toggles and switches and filters I need to start with. That's a frustrating place to begin. So that's my advice.
That was the perfect ending before I head to car pickup line. Thank you so much for that. This has been amazing. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Danielle.
Phew! What a way to close out our Screens campaign. Huge thanks to Chris for such an honest and important conversation, because the truth is we are raising kids in a digital world that we were not prepared for. And for neurodivergent kids especially, screens are rarely just screens. Sometimes they're survival mode for the whole dang family. What I loved about today's episode is that it wasn't rooted in shame or fear. It was about preparation, helping our kids slowly build the skills they need to safely navigate the online world they already live in. Not perfections, not zero screens, just support, awareness, balance, and realistic parenting in really unrealistic times. Thank you for being a part of this series. Seriously, this community showed up for these conversations in the most incredible way. If this episode helped you, please send it to another parent in the iPad trenches. And don't forget to check out Chris and Protect Young Eyes in the show notes. While you're there, please make sure you follow the podcast, leave us a review, 5 stars obviously. And as always, I hope you get to drink your coffee before it gets cold. This is Chaos and Caffeine. I'm Danielle, and I'll see you back here next week. If you're a parent in the neurodivergent world, you already know this. We read labels like it's our second job. We side-eye ingredients, we Google brands at midnight, and we're constantly looking for support options that feel intentional and not sketchy. That's one of the reasons so many families, including my own, trust Mary Ruth Organics. Their supplements come in easy-to-take liquid drops, which honestly matters when pills are a hard no. The flavors are kid-friendly, the formulas are vegan, Clean Label Project certified, and the company itself is a B Corp, which means they actually care about what goes into their products and how they operate. Mary Ruth's doesn't promise miracles, and neither do we. What they offer is thoughtfully made, high-quality supplements that fit into real family routines without added stress. If you're looking for a brand that prioritizes transparency, clean ingredients, and making supplements easier for kids and parents alike, Mary Ruth Organics is one worth checking out. Because supporting our kids starts with choosing products we actually feel good about giving them.